So, over this past summer, I was fortunate enough to be able to go and do some volunteer work over in Thailand and Laos, where we were completely 100% culturally immersed, got to experience ceremonies that they performed, get to taste the same homemade food that they have every day. The experience that I want to talk about is something that we did on the very last day that we were in Laos. It was kind of a goodbye to us, and it was called the Baci Ceremony. So throughout this video, I'm gonna kind of go and explain why the ceremony is performed, such as like what types of events that it would occur at. I'm also going to talk about the different aspects of it, the different things that are put into it, such as the food and what you should wear. And then I'm also going to talk about how the ceremony is completed and also share my experience with how the Baci ceremony was done. So a little bit of background information about the Baci ceremony and events that it would be performed at include things such as getting married or someone coming home or welcoming guests into their village. So now that we've kind of talked about the different events that this would take place at, I want to talk about the different materials that are needed for it and what each of them mean or symbolize. So in the middle of the ceremony, you're going to have a table with a white sheet on it and have it's called a pukan, and I'll post a picture of it. And that is typically made a few days before the ceremony is done by the elderly women in the village. And what it is a marigold tower that has food items placed underneath it, which I'll talk about the food items in a second. And then in the thing itself, it has sticks with the white cotton thread wrapped around it. And the food items that are placed at the bottom include a hard-boiled egg, which for them it symbolizes a fetus. Then you also have, we had a banana leaf that was wrapped around sweet rice, and that symbolizes two different things coming together and bringing several parts together. And then the other thing that they also had was something called lao lao, which was a whiskey that they used, and that is used for purification. Another thing that they also will have down there, for our ceremony they had crackers, but for other ceremonies they have chicken bodies, chicken feet, chicken head. And they have that boiled, and they have that at the bottom, and that's for a divination purpose. And then the cotton white threads that I talked about before, those also have a very cool meaning behind it, and they think that the 32 organs that are in our body, they believe that they all have a spirit called a kuna, and they believe that by tying this string, it connects all the 32 spirits together. And when you tie that around your wrist, it helps with making everything realign. And so if the one spirit. So now that you kind of know the different materials that are used, I want to talk about the ceremony itself. So it starts off with an elderly man in the village. He kind of does this morpan invitation, which is when he invites people to the ceremony, and after everyone is kind of gathered around, you take your shoes off before stepping on the mat, or take your shoes off before entering into a house, which is part of their culture. If you are receiving the blessing, you are then asked to put your hand on the pukan in the middle, and you want to do it with your palm down. After you have done that, the elder would then go on and do a prayer and a blessing and wish you luck in which anything else that he kind of has to say. So then after he got done giving his prayers and his blessings, he passed out a plate that had the different food items on it and the shot of lao lao. We all got to eat the food together, including the villagers, and after everyone got finished eating, the people that were receiving the blessings got asked to turn around, and they called this a Y. And if you weren't receiving anything from anyone at that time, you were to sit like this on your knees with your feet behind you and wait for someone to come up to you. And then once someone was in front of you, you would open your hands as if you were opening up a book, but you wouldn't look at the person. You would continue to look down as they tied the cotton around your wrist. And after they tied that around their wrist as they were doing it, they were also giving you their own blessings, wishing you good luck with your future, safe travels home, good luck with a job, and just saying thank you. And like for me, I think this was probably the most emotional part of the ceremony because we had kids that I had been working with coming up and also tying them around your wrists and giving you blessings and saying thank you. And so that got really emotional with me. But I was covered from wrist to about halfway down my forearm. I'll post that picture. Covered in these white cotton threads. But the thing with these is after the ceremony was completed, you could not take them off for 3 days. You were to leave them on. If they fell off, that was okay. But you were not to intentionally take them off because it was untying that bond. But after you got that 3 days, you were allowed to untie them. You weren't supposed to cut them. You weren't supposed to chop them with a knife or something like that. You had to go through and untie each individual one. And it was really cool because you got to kind of have those on for 3 days and have people ask you what was on, why'd you have these on your wrist, like what'd you take part in, especially when we were traveling back to the US. We got asked a bunch of questions from people from all over. And so what I'm hoping from this video that you guys get is not only a deeper understanding of what this Baci ceremony is, but also kind of realize how different things can symbolize different things in different cultures, and also just kind of get a better understanding. And hopefully if you ever do get to partake in one, you kind of learned a little bit about it from this video.